Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Streaming Alchemy Show. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're really excited to have Eamon Drew from BirdDog. If you don't know BirdDog, you should. They are one of the top providers of NDI related gear, everything from encoders and decoders through cameras, through a range of software products. So, this should be a lot of fun and a great show. Before we get to bringing Eamon on, I just want to remind everybody that we will be taking callers for this show. So if you want to join us, the URL is right here. We also welcome any comments that anybody wants to make in the sort of community section of however you're watching this. So without any further ado, let me bring on Eamon here. Eamon.
Hi.
So hey, this is Eamon Drew. It is
Morning.
to understand the sacrifice he's making. It is 6 a.m. in Melbourne, Australia, and he has he has volunteered to be the man on camera. So, Eamon, thank you.
I'm very happy to be here. So thank you for the invitation, John. I've been following your show for a little while, and I really enjoy it. So I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, great! It's a great community here. So I'm glad
Yeah.
glad to have you be a part of this. So uh, I guess a good place to start would be talking a bit about BirdDog. I sort of gave a general introduction, but there's a lot more color you can probably add to this.
Sure. So BirdDog, we started in 2016. We're predominantly an engineering company at heart, even though we present ourselves as a commercial company and things like that. We're predominantly an engineering company, and we all started on the simple idea that when we found out about NDI, it all started with a conversation between myself and my business partner, Dan Mile, who's the CEO of our company. And we are talking about how to get NDI into a TriCaster. We were selling TriCaster in Australia and New Zealand and throughout Southeast Asia. And it all started from that simple conversation. And Dan and I were talking about it, and we didn't think much more of it. And then 2 or 3 days later, Dan has come into the office and he's got a drawing of the Studio NDI, our first product, and he's saying, we're going to build a product to get a live source into a TriCaster. So it all came about from a very simple conversation, and yeah, look, we've been along for the ride since the very start. So we spent probably it was about 2 years in development to get our first product ready, and our biggest feat of engineering is actually we're the first company to put NDI into a silicon chip.
Yep.
So we have a custom chip that does well, it's an FPGA which does NDI encode and decode in one frame latency on encode and one frame latency on decode. And so off the back of that chip, we've then made commercial products such as Studio NDI and Mini, and then we've taken that chip and put inside some cameras. So we now have the world's first range of full bandwidth NDI cameras. And yeah, we've made some software applications to go around that as well, because
Yep.
we don't want to just make one trick pony boxes that does, this box does HDMI encode to NDI, and this one does, SDI decode from NDI, things like that. We want to create like a workflow solution. So we have all of our products do multiple things. So, like for example, our Studio NDI product, it will give you uh, NDI tally, audio intercom, power, video, and audio all down a single cable. And that means that you can carry less gear to your shoots and your gigs, and still have a full solution. It's almost like a camera back, but over NDI. So yeah, that's sort of the history of the company. That's where we came from. We're really only just getting started, so we've got some exciting things coming as well.
That's cool. I mean, I think one of the interesting things you mentioned is it started with an idea, like how do we do more of this? Where I want to get NDI now into TriCasters because we're selling TriCasters. And that's something from talking with a lot of people we've seen. It's usually somebody just says something, and it's not like this big major plan that you have for world domination. It's sort of like, no, somebody said, and the same with features, not just like the start. It's like somebody will come and say, "Gee, it's great if we could have comms back," and then you sort of say, "Oh, wow, we got all this." So
Yeah, and look, it is funny you mentioned that. It did just come about from a simple conversation that Dan and I had, and I didn't think much more of it. But Dan's kind of a visionary in the company, and yeah, he came back 3 or 4 days later and just had this idea. And I guess as we went along, we almost gave up a bunch of times. I'm not going to lie, but we sort of got so far deep into it that we just had to keep going, and the only way forward was to just keep plowing ahead. So yeah, it's been a very difficult few years, but we're now selling. We're selling all over the world, and we've had a huge amount of support from resellers and from end customers, and it's really been humbling to see people get behind our little startup company and give us some great support. So yeah, we appreciate it a lot.
One of the things that has really impressed me, because we use NDI here as big believer in that as the direction this industry is going to be in, uh, is is the fact that you don't look at it in a single dimension. Everything you do tends to have three or four different angles to it. It does software pieces that talk and bi-directional. So, I mean, I think you started with the encoder space first. And so
Sure.
that I think was your like what was that the studio encoder, which is now
You're in your first product. Yeah, yeah.
so that was something I think that was your start point, and that didn't start out as an encoder and decoder in the shipping product. I mean, so there was
No,
some vision in that.
yeah, so let me just start with a bit of a shout out to New Tech. Thank you for making NDI. It is the format that the industry has been waiting for. Broadcast is the last of our sort of industries to get into sending our data or our video, our streams over a network. Audio has been doing networking for
Yeah.
more than a decade. I think it's probably more like 2 decades. So video's been quite a long way behind. And thank you, New Tech, for giving us NDI. It is the format everyone's been waiting for. We all know we were going to go to IP at some point, and I think everyone's been waiting for something like NDI to come along. Um, yeah, but then in terms of our product, we released Studio NDI. At first, it was a simple encoder, but we knew we were going to develop certain features in the back. And yeah, maybe we announced them too early and gave people too much up front. But the beauty of the way we develop is we use an FPGA, which is an upgradable chip. So what it means is as we go along, we can release firmware updates.
Jeremy, hi.
Oh, hey, Jeremy, how you doing? Um, yeah, and so we can release updates to do more and more things. So Studio, when it first came out, it was a one direction encoder. We released updates along the way to do audio intercom, to do NDI decode, so it can go NDI in and then back out to baseband SDI or to baseband HDMI. It's also a cross converter, so it can do HDMI to SDI cross conversion. And these are all things that we've added via free updates across the course of the life of the product. It's almost finished now, and we can move on to other things. And we've got some exciting things coming up, of course. We're not sitting still, but yeah, the beautiful thing about FPGAs and the way we go about it is, yeah, there'll always be updates coming for your product. When new versions of, say, NDI come out, we can add those features into the chip and give you an update, which then makes your product even better. So
Yep.
we feel like it's giving it a Christmas present or a birthday present, every 6 months or so.
So the studio side with the product that works bi-directionally simultaneously. Is that correct, or it's one or the other?
No, not simultaneously. It'll do either an encode or a decode.
Okay.
Um, Yep, we may be able to do bidirectional in the future, but we're not quite sure on that. But at the moment, yes, you can use it as an NDI encoder or an NDI decoder. We don't sell a separate box to do decode or a separate box to do encode. The
Right.
boxes are bidirectional, um, so you can just toggle those in the web console between encode and decode.
And this has audio out as well. So that's sort of like with, because I know we haven't really talked about the software side yet, but you do have a comms product that allows you to interact with a camera operator.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the photo of the studio again, you'll see on the front there's a little we call it 3.5 millimeter headset jack. I'm not sure what you call it in the
Yep.
states.
That's
Volumetric
yeah, an eighth of an inch jack or a
measurement.
3.5. Everybody sort of uses both.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can plug a headset in. We've got our headsets launching this month, which have a push to talk button on them, and a microphone, so you can do two-way audio communications with our comm software.
So that's your headset.
Yep, there's our headset. So that's it's actually shipping out of our warehouse this week. So they're finally here, just in time for Christmas. And yeah, that allows you to set up an audio intercom system. So with any of our products, our hardware products, we have a 3.5 mil jack in them,
Yep.
and then we have two versions of our comm software. One is a free version, which anybody can download and use today, and then there's a paid version, which is gives you more features like 30 users and party lines and all this sort of thing.
So really, it's a mix now of software that runs on a system with hardware with basically a programmable chip on it that now, because of NDI, stitches together into the ecosystem. Now you start to.
Yeah, yeah. Look, my history in video has been I started in the industry when I was like 18 years old, so that's 23 years ago now.
Yep.
Getting old. And that's how I met Dan. We were working together at the same company from the very start. So we were selling Miro DC1. I'm not sure if you remember that product, but it was one of the first capture cards to
Yep.
put video onto a computer. So we go all the way back to the start, Dan and I, and we've known each other for that whole time. Um, I've It took me a little while. I'm not going to lie. It took me a little while to get my head around NDI and the way NDI can be sort of everywhere at once. I'm so used to a traditional baseband video workflow where you send video from one SDI port to another SDI port, and then if you want to route it, you have to use a router and things like that. It did take me a little while to get my head around NDI, and I think that's probably where Dan is such a visionary in that he got it straight away and he could see the future and say, okay, this is whilst it's a video play, it's more of a software play. And so by having the video everywhere and having all these, bi-directional traffic, because NDI can be at point A and point B at the same time,
Yep.
and you can send it, both ways. Things like our routing software Central makes that available then to take any kind of stream that's on the network and then port it out to any of our decoders,
Yep.
and you can group them up. But also things like audio intercom, where you've got video going one way, you've got audio coming back the other way, and it's bi-directional at the same time. These are all these workflow products that Dan had imagined from the very start, but we had to make the hardware first to enable these kind of workflows. So
Yep.
you can probably expect to see a lot more software coming out of BirdDog in the future to tie our hardware products together, but there'll also be more hardware as well. So but this is the beauty of NDI, and I think we're here to help people, help educate people, or help answer questions and things like this about NDI because it is. I hate to use catchphrases and things like that, but it is definitely a paradigm shift from where we've been with baseband video. And once you can sort of start to understand video being everywhere at the same time, the workflow possibilities that it opens up are sort of endless. Things like our BirdDog Cloud, which we've just launched, allows you to do a remote production from, say, New York if you're sitting in a control room in London. These kind of things. It's been the dream of every video producer to sit on the
Oh
beach in
yeah.
the Bahamas with a laptop and an internet connection, right? And do a show.
But
It's kind of possible now. As long as you've got a decent internet connection, you can do these things, and we're hoping that we can help develop the tools to allow these kind of workflows.
I mean, the coolest thing is once you have things as bits, you can do anything to them. So the
Yeah,
whole I mean, if you think about, the way an audio mixer works, so you can have insert jacks and you can route things. That's what we have now with NDI in the video space. You can do proc amps that can get injected in the middle of things. And the only enemy now is latency, because that's going to be the trick in all of
yeah.
this.
Well, correct. And yeah, this is one of the beautiful things about NDI is the latency is the speed of light. The only latency that gets applied to NDI is in the devices that are in between the two endpoints. So, switches don't really add that much latency. They can, but they don't really. Our products add 1 frame latency on encode and 1 frame latency on decode. But then it's things like screens and things like that that'll add a bit of latency in projectors and stuff. But yeah, really, the NDI itself doesn't really have any latency. It's you're talking milliseconds to go around the world. So um, yeah, so it's we keep finding out all these new ideas for NDI, and hopefully we can bring them all to fruition over the next sort of 18 months.
Well, it's nice now that sort of new tech now under VizRT has spun NDI into its own sort of branch of the organization. There's Viz, there's NDI, and new tech now. So
Yeah,
they're actually seeing that same level of importance and ecosystem sustainability. It can stand on its own as a component that's going to have, that must make all of you guys feel good too, because you build your business around it. So it's its success
Yeah.
matters.
Well, absolutely. A lot of people asked us when the New Tech Viz merger happened, or the New Tech acquisition by Viz happened, how we felt about it. And to be honest, I've been very excited about it. I think it's the best thing that could happen for NDI, because now it's out on its own. It will be um, pushed harder. I think part of the reason that Viz wanted to merge with New Tech so badly was, one, obviously their tricasters and things like this, but I think more so that it was the NDI format. They've obviously got a vision for NDI that's much larger than ours, and we're sort of a small part of it. But yeah, it was really humbling to see. Peter, the co-founder of VizRT, came and spent like an hour on our booth at IBC in September, and had a demonstration literally on every product that we have on display. And yeah, so we feel very comfortable in the world of NDI now, and we think that it's now it's got $1 billion company behind it. I think it can only
Oh
grow
yeah.
from strength to strength.
So Richard, hi, thanks for joining us. So,
Hey Richard, how you doing?
but yeah, I think Viz joining sort of the NDI camp is going to push it into a lot more high end facilities as well. And I think that opens up the workflow possibilities. Once you get some of the big guys looking at how they can integrate that, I think it creates momentum down market where you get a lot more, hey, if it's good enough for them, we could certainly use it.
I definitely feel that, and we're talking to some of the largest broadcasters in the world about various NDI workflows using not only our gear but some TriCasters and some other gear as well. We're kind of like, we see ourselves as endpoints in a way. We're either the input into the NDI world, or we're the output to
Yep.
a TV or a projector or something like that, or back to baseband video workflow. But yeah, some of the biggest broadcasters in the world, actually the top three largest broadcasters in the world, we've been in discussions with about various things. So yeah, definitely NDI is getting the attention at the very top of the market for
And
sure.
that's a big shift. I mean, because I know when we first started talking about NDI with folks, it's like, oh no, that's all compressed stuff and we can't. But I think now there's a recognition that A, the flexibility it gives you production advantages, but also that the quality is really good. When you look at it, if you ask people, you know, people don't pixel peep video. So, if you want to, you know,
Yeah. Well, we've done some quality tests with NDI, and we say this a lot. Basically, NDI, the compression is it's about 3 times what broadcasters have been using in the past. Most broadcasters have been using a 50 megabit XD can or a Panasonic P2 kind of workflow, predominantly XD can. Um, and yeah, and so like NDI is like 3 times the data rate of XD cam, and it's scalable, so it can go up and down as well. But the signal to noise ratio on the codec itself is similar to ProRes, so it's visually lossless while still being compressed and small enough to send multiple streams down existing gigabit Ethernet networks. So yeah, it's a wonderful format. Low latency, very high quality video, um, a beautiful transport stream that just I think the biggest thing for me with NDI is the auto discovery. So if
yep.
you plug an NDI compatible device into the network and you have another NDI compatible device on the same network, they just see each other, they just start working, and they can talk to each other almost by magic. It's just, it kind of just works, is the brand promise.
And you also have more bit depth than you'd have over things going across SDI. I mean, I think SDI is 10 bit, and NDI itself
Yeah.
opens itself up to 16 bit on, so especially in
Yeah.
HDR world, that's interesting.
So video itself can go to about 12 bit at 444 uncompressed SDI. NDI can't change that because that is a limitation, or well, not a limitation, but that's how video is. The extra bit depth that they announced in NDI 4 is
Yep.
more for computer graphics than video. So people keep asking us, "Oh, can you do 16-bit in NDI?" And it's like, well, not really, because video doesn't do 16-bit. We can add 16-bit color depth into our products, but that will be more for computer graphics than for video.
Okay, cool.
So just to sort of
No,
clear
good.
that up a little bit. Yeah, so don't expect us to do 16-bit video. We might do 10 or 12-bit video, but 16-bit is it's not a video spec.
Yeah, yeah. But the having an enhanced color space in an HDR world is totally compatible with NDI, and I think that's
Yeah,
totally.
100%. I don't know this, and I'm speculating, but I would think that one of the big things that New Tech and Viz and NDI should be working on at the moment is HDR. I think me personally, extra resolution is nice, but I think better pixels is probably preferable. So I think in the future, I don't think it's a much of a stretch for us to imagine that HDR will be built into NDI. And
Yep.
when it is, BirdDog will support it, and we can have HDR NDI workflows, which that's an exciting thing to think about, actually. Yeah,
Which goes back to the programmable chips and future proofing people. So that's all that stuff
yeah,
is great,
exactly.
actually. So,
Yeah, as long as we've got the space on the chip itself, and enough
yep.
clocks to do it. Yeah, we can 100% add this feature in the future. I might say I'm speculating here. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if New Tech
I,
are working on it.
that's
Maybe they
okay.
are. I don't know.
So, okay,
Yeah.
we'll caveat it that Eamon is the chief marketing officer. So, just that's he's going to say things that are technically accurate, but maybe a little more optimistic than the tech people talk about. Hey,
Yeah, look, to be honest, if we made a HDR product, if New Tech announced that, it might have to be a new set of hardware. I'm not sure if we can
yeah,
put it into the existing hardware. I'm not,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
I'm kidding with you,
I'm
but
not in.
yeah, it's I definitely I definitely see the markets moving that way, and everybody, I mean, your products in as a sort of a family are really affordable, for most people given where you're at. So, the sort of thing where I think everybody understands that as technology moves, some things can upgrade, other things are going to be new features. So that's part of the game here.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. We're sort of all in it together. So, oh,
So,
hey, Josh, how you doing?
Josh, thank you. So yeah, I mean, Josh is pointing to the 4K quads, which he's mentioning, and so you've actually fleshed out the line there. So you have the studio, but then you came out with the mini, which really was
Yep,
sort of a more compact, pared down. That's only HDMI, so it's not
correct.
SDI.
Actually, if you stack the mini on top of the studio, you can see exactly what we've done. We basically took a hacksaw to the SDI ports and just cut them off.
But it's a very nice package for it, actually. The footprint and everything is really great, especially if you are doing stuff where you're mounting it on a camera. That's a great form factor for that. Uh,
Sure. Yeah, great.
but you also now have the 4K, which I think
Yep.
is really interesting, and not just 4K, but you have quad versions. So that's more like the infrastructure play now you're moving to.
Yeah, so we've got three versions in there. We've got a single channel HDMI and a single channel SDI. And they kind of all look the same in terms of the form factor, but there's some sort of subtle differences. So some of the things that we've achieved on this product that I'm really proud of, and this has come from being the first to market with the Studio NDI and listening to customer feedback for the best part of a year, 18 months. So we still give you the things like the tally system and the audio intercom, which people expect from us. But you'll notice on the front there's a little OLED screen,
Yep.
the little blue writing there. It's a little bit hard to see there, but
Yep.
we have a little OLED screen.
There.
And what that gives you is things like the IP address, the frame rate, the resolution, and the format, um, and the device name. So the big thing on there is the IP address. So from listening to our customers and using the products in the market for the best part of 18 months, one of the things that everyone struggles with moving from baseband video into networking video products is IP addresses and things like this. So now we give it to you right there on the screen.
Yep.
You can see it anytime. You can go over to any web browser, plug in the IP address, and then access the unit. So that's a really big feature of the 4K products. But in terms of the products, yeah, we have a single channel HDMI that also has HDMI and SDI loop out, so it's a cross converter.
Yep.
The SDI is the same, but in SDI, so it'll be SDI in, SDI out, and HDMI out. I should mention that all of the ports you see 12G SDI and HDMI 2.0, so they're all 4K P60 compatible.
Yep.
And then we have the quad, which internally I call it our Mona Lisa. This is our head engineer. I call it his Mona Lisa, and he kind of likes that. So this will do 4 channels of 4K P60, and they can be, and you can do that in the web console. So this, yeah, as you said, as an infrastructure play, we see this going into racks. So you put two side by side in a 1RU rack and have 8 channels of 4K P60 to NDI or vice versa. Things like a stage box, so you can run your SDI cameras to one box on the side of the stage and then NDI into your TriCaster um, or other, NDI compatible products.
Yep.
Um, Yep. And then also on there, and this is again taken from customer feedback, we have an SFP plus cage on there. So you can run either 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is required if you're doing 4 channels of 4K P60, or you can run fiber directly out of the unit. So, if you're doing a single channel of
Yep.
uh, SDI on one side of the football field, you can just run a single fiber cable back to your vision mixer, and you don't have to worry about all of the networking things and converting Ethernet to
Yep.
fiber and all that sort of thing. You can run fiber directly out of the units. So yeah,
Okay. So what you
and they'll.
mentioned. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, and I was just going to say they start shipping as of next quarter.
Excellent. Because I think there is a lot of excitement in the market for that. So, but you mentioned that you've basically placed the same technology into cameras now. So it sort of is a all-in-one. So I'd like to talk a bit about the camera side because I think that's another area people are definitely interested in.
Yeah, the cameras have kind of changed our little business a lot. The demand has been overwhelming. It's taken us a little bit of time to get them to market. We partnered up with a company called Bolin out of
Yep.
they're a sort of a USA based company that owns a factory in China, and they make cameras. So we don't pretend to make all of the mechanics of the cameras, but we've
Yeah.
partnered with them to make specific NDI cameras and bring them to the market. We have made a special board that goes inside the cameras that allows the cameras to put out NDI in basically real time, um, and well, as well as doing SDI and HDMI as well. So yeah, the demand on these cameras has been overwhelming. We've been shipping the P200, which is sort of the flagship product for the production kind of camera.
Yep.
We've been shipping that for about 4 or 5 months now, and we've seen orders from all over the world. And I was running a silly little campaign, hashtag P200 selfie, and I've been having customers send in photos of themselves with their cameras. And we've had photos from remote parts of Russia, the Faroe Islands. I didn't even know where the Faroe Islands was. I had to look it up on Google Maps. It's sort of somewhere between Denmark and Iceland,
Okay.
so that's pretty remote. We've had them come in from Africa, all through Southeast Asia, the USA, of course, Canada. We've had some from South America. So basically all over the world. It's been really humbling to see them sort of make their way into all these countries. Yeah.
So you have the P100 and the P200, which sort of take in that sort of the market from people who are starting to people who are looking for a more robust camera. But you also
Yep.
have, a 4K camera as well, sort of at the high end. So
Yeah, so we launched at IBC, or we announced at IBC the P4K, which is a 4K camera. It's our first foray into 4K cameras. This uses a Sony 1-inch sensor and a full Sony image module. So with the size of the sensor and the bit depth of the sensor, you can expect some really beautiful images out of this camera. We this is at the higher end of the market for sure. It's an $8,000 camera, so it's not aimed at education and things like that. It's more aimed at production facilities and broadcasters. We've had a huge response from it. We should start shipping this hopefully early 2020, and yeah, the demand has been really high. So with that Sony 1-inch sensor, the pictures are beautiful, and you can sort of color match it better with some of your production cameras at the higher end. We've done a few things in there as well that I'm really kind of happy with. It's got a 360 tele system, which I think is unique. I haven't seen any other PDZ cameras with it because it has the tele lights on the front and it actually has one on the back. You can see the tele
yep.
lights from literally 360 degrees. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can see which camera's live and which camera's set to preview.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because PTZs as a niche in the camera space are becoming more important with automation and sort of the streamlining of the crews that work production. So this is really a great, tie that in with IP. which is also a streamlining technology for these things, and it's like a perfect fit for that whole trend in the industry right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is sort of the beautiful thing with NDI is because you can run one cable to the cameras and it can do video, audio, and control.
Yep.
Um, it is now a possibility for someone to go out there and have a three camera shoot. They can be by themselves. They can have two PDZs on the sides, for example, and one production camera in the middle that they're controlling, or even three PDZs. They can set up presets and you can recall them through your TriCaster or your vMix.
Yep.
We have a little control panel as well that helps set that up, and they can also do the presets. But yeah, you can do a three camera shoot now with one person using PDZs. The other beautiful thing with NDI is these PDZs can be anywhere on the network, so they could be in another country, and you can control them, or you can, and using our BirdDog cloud software, you can do a remote production as well. So I think PDZs or robotic cameras, as some people like to call them,
Yep.
are sort of at the starting point, but it's only that the sales and the size of this market opportunity is only going to get big.
Yeah, but your PTZ keyboard, that is something that is an NDI based device. So it like supports Whisker over IP, but it's still an NDI based device at its heart. So
Yeah, correct. So we've taken our NDI technology and put it inside, and that's part of the reason it's taken a little bit longer than we hoped to get this to market. But the good news is it'll be shipping before Christmas. They're in production now. But yes, we've taken our NDI technology and put it inside so that you can control the PDZs over a single cable. Um,
yeah, but
yeah,
it's got
using
a
the
lot more
NDI.
on it though. Like if you actually start to look at the controls it has. So it has all the types of things where you, if you want to dial in color, you want to control any of the like the iris controls and shutter speeds. Those types of things are right there, which is really great in an NDI world. I mean, you just pick your camera and then you go. So it's
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can control up to 255 cameras with this, and you can mix and match protocols as well. So you can have NDI HX cameras, you can have NDI cameras, and you can have Whisker over IP cameras, for example. You have all of your shutter and iris control on the left hand side. At the top, the two dials there are for sort of speed control, so you can control the zoom speed and also the motion speed. And yeah, you can have up to I think it's 9 or 12 presets per camera, and so you can just recall the preset, and the camera will move to that position
yep.
automatically, and then yeah, all the things you'd expect from a robotic camera. You have six assignable buttons as well, which can be shortcuts for various functions,
Oh,
and
very cool.
it's a really simple to use keyboard. One of the things that I love about this keyboard though is it has a 3.5 mil audio jack on there, obviously, so that your PDZ controller operator can headset and become part of the audio intercom group.
So this makes them when you're doing crew now, you have that whole thing where you can talk to everybody and that becomes your camera operator if the camera is remote. So they act in that same role now.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. So they can be part of the audio intercom group, the same as the camera operators who are at the front of stage with the production cameras. So yeah,
So definitely cool. So I mean, some of the interesting stuff though, when I look at your lineup, is that each one of the things that you've added to the family really flow directly into fill a workflow need. So it fits in a piece of a bigger workflow. And so I know you've had the chance to work with some clients out there, sort of looking at all types of things that they want to do with NDI. And I think it would be great just to share some of them because there's probably stuff that people aren't even thinking about right now that NDI could be a
yeah.
great fit for.
Well, yes, and so I'm sort of learning as well because I come from a video background and starting out with NLEs and then moving into sort of more of the production things. We're sort of starting to learn that NDI is traversing outside of the broadcast industry and into other spaces as well. So some of the really cool setups that we've done, and probably the one that I'm most excited about, was we did. It was like a pop-up install for I think it was about a month or 2 months at Nike's flagship store in Fifth Avenue, New York,
Yep.
and they had like 80 pieces of our NDI decoders, and they were using them to decode various content onto screens inside the store. And they had this whole, from my understanding anyway, they had this whole motion kind of capture setup thing going, so that when people walked in front of the screens, the content would change on the screens, and they were driving that
Yep.
from some back end software, but then pushing that out over NDI to our Mini, which was used as a decoder. So, when we started out on this NDI journey 3 years ago, we never expected to be put it into permanent. Oh, sorry, these kind of like installations
Yeah.
inside stores like Nike and Fifth Avenue. That's kind of just crazy to us. So these more and more of these kind of things are popping up, and yeah, we never expected NDI to go into those places. We always saw it as a kind of a production tool.
Yeah, I mean, even in the broadcast space, I mean, driving on-set displays and things like that, all these things can become part of sort of the NDI ecosystem. I'm just looking at, adding decode opens up a whole new avenue for how you can route and
Yeah,
use it.
absolutely. Like on this sort of the smaller scale live production, maybe your live streaming guys who go out with a TriCast, three cameras, and are doing like maybe a shoot for sports or things like that. They can definitely bring in their cameras via NDI, but then they can push their cameras back out to screens that are, say in an auditorium or in a house of worship. They've got multiple screens around the place.
Yep.
Esports tournament. We've done a lot of esports tournaments where people are, bringing in their things into a TC1 over NDI and then pushing that back out to screens around the stadium using our Mini as a decoder. So the NDI decoding is as important to BirdDog moving forward as the encoding for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, we look at it where we're at the point now where everything is just a component that sort of gets glued by NDI. So I see, the opportunity if you have NDI on one end of it, there's a lot of opportunity to develop really creative, crazy things, as part of a broader workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. Once the sort of the end, you've got the video into NDI and it's on the network, being able to access it literally from anywhere in the world if you've got the right setup, and then be able to put it back out to anywhere in the world opens up all kinds of workflows. Workflows that we haven't even thought of yet that people are working on. Um, virtualized switching systems. We're already seeing more and more talk at the higher end about remote productions, and they're talking, like seriously high end remote productions. We've just done actually, we put a video on our YouTube channel just recently about Euromedia, who are using BirdDog Cloud and NDI to do remote graphics for sports events and sort of high end football in France. Um, it means that they don't have to send their graphics operators out to the location to do, just sit there and be at the football stadium doing on-air graphics.
Yeah.
With the latency of NDI across the cloud, they can just sit at the control room back in their head office in Paris, and people go out and do the shoot, send the video back. They're doing the on-air graphics, send it back. It's fast enough to then go live to TV. So.
And what's great kind of with that is you end up preserving a job because with the way budgets work, if they couldn't afford to send somebody out, they'd figure out a way to consolidate it. But now by reducing the structural cost of doing something, you preserve the people cost that, actually adds the sort of that extra value. The real
Yeah,
eyeballs
absolutely,
versus
and
automation is, one of those, you can't fight it, but to what we see, there's still an objective, value to having a live person sort of there and responding in a way that you just can't get.
definitely. NDI is never going to replace people going out to the site. It might just change the roles of where people are. So you might send less people out, but you still need the same amount of people back in a
Yeah.
machine room somewhere to do the control and things like that. But yeah, it might just save on some air miles more than anything.
That's something
Yeah,
you would like to do, right? So you have to figure out a way to cut down on your air hours. So
yeah. I need to find a way to offset my miles as well. I think I need to plant about 10,000 trees so far.
yeah, I know that's it's tough, especially I mean, we are a small company, so I sort of appreciate a lot of the stuff you've been talking about. But I have to say the thing that I like most about what you guys have done is you sort of taken an idea and stuck with it. And I know as a small company, it's really easy to sit there and say, I can't make this work. There's just too much. But it's
Yeah.
sort of I find that's where people trade the sets of issues they already know that they just have to work at to solve versus, well, I'm going to jump into something else that I don't know any of the issues, so I can be happy about it for the next 6 months until I find out that there's a lot of hard issues there. So I get
Yeah,
that
look,
small company thing.
yeah, it's hard. The things that happen in the background. Just the boring stuff like running a business and doing all of your tax compliance with the Australian government, which is all this sort of stuff. It's not easy. And then on the front side, you have to make the products and then get them to market. Um, Plus, we have the challenge of being a long way from everywhere. Being in Melbourne, Australia, the kind of the shortest place we can get to is Singapore, and that's 8 hours away on an aeroplane. So, that has its challenges, but that's okay. We love what we're doing, and we're getting out there around the world. So,
So I don't want to, you know, take a lot of time from you, but I want to give you a chance. If there's anything we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about, please feel free.
I think we've covered most of the things, sort of theoretically about NDI and where we sit in the NDI world. Um, I think, yeah, from BirdDog's point of view, we're a small company. We're very customer focused. You'll see that myself and Dan, we spend a lot of time on social media,
Yep.
engaging directly with our customers. We genuinely do care about our customers, and that's why I will be sitting here at 5 a.m. talking to our customers and 6 a.m. Sorry, talking to customers and talking to you. But also at the back end, I'll be awake at 1 a.m. replying to customers as well. And we genuinely care about our customers um, and our customer success. We're constantly innovating, so we've got a lot of exciting things happening in 2020. I feel like we've been saying this. We've been around for 3 years, but we feel like we're kind of at the start line of Bird Dogs you know growth and our future plans. Uh, yeah, and it's been extremely humbling to have so many people jump on board and invest in our products from a startup company. It's always a risk, and we're so happy that people have taken us seriously in the marketplace. And yeah, we're very committed to our customer success. So we're a very customer first company.
Yeah, I don't think that people view you anymore as a startup. I mean, I'll just tell you from the perspective where we hear people. So,
Sure.
joining the ranks of the established is a big deal when you're a small company. And I want to congratulate you on succeeding there in spades because that's something that I think is not easy to pull off.
Yeah, thank you. I will say it is insanely humbling when we get photos and people will send in and say, like, I just published one from Ireland on our Facebook from Catch 22 Productions,
Yep.
just to use them as an example. They went out and did a shoot. They had 5 of our products to do, camera encoding to their vMix machine and things like that. They sent us a photo, and in the photo, it's like we're alongside companies like vMix, and in their rack they've got our gear and Black Magic and things like that. And yeah, it's insanely humbling to sit alongside these companies in like real world workflows, and we still kind of pinch ourselves now and then when we see these photos. We're like, wow, we made a thing that people are using. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, that's testament to the product. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the products speak for themselves, and yours, I think, speak really well for all the effort you put in. So, that Dan
Well, thank you, John.
definitely, I want to, congratulate him as well. But I know the marketing side doesn't get the glory in that sense, but I know what it takes to get a product into consciousness in a space. So it's you deserve a big pat on the back as well with
Yeah,
all this. It's
I do play it down a little bit, but I do sit in the product development meetings as well, and I do have some ideas. So I'm not just the guy who makes the pretty boxes, even though I paint myself that way.
so uh, so if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so we're very active on social media, as I said before. So join our Facebook page and our Facebook user group. Our Facebook user group is one of the things I'm being so insanely humbled by. People post questions in there,
Yep.
and our users answer those questions without us having to jump in a lot of the time, which is great. So yeah, social media is the best way to engage us. But also, if you want to reach out to me personally, my email address is Eamon, which is my first name, EAMON, at bird-dog.tv. I'll do my best to get back to you in a timely manner. Or if you want support with our company, if you've already got our product, the best way to engage support is help at birddog.tv.
Okay, so and I want to make sure people know it's bird-dog.tv if they're going to your site. So not just bird dog, bird-dog.
Yeah,
So
yeah, correct. Bird-dog.tv.
so so Eamon, if you don't mind, we're gonna end the show, and then we usually have a, a quick Q&A after the show for anybody that wants to. So if you're willing to hang around, that would be great.
Look, it's 6:45 on Saturday morning here in Australia, so I'm yours for as long as you want me.
Okay, so let me wrap up the show, and then we'll jump back on with you. And if anybody has any questions, that would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, John.
Okay, so Lee, I'm sorry I missed your message when it was up there, but yeah, I agree with you. The folks from BirdDog have a huge amount of passion in what they do, and that does show through in what they have been delivering product wise. So hopefully this was interesting to everybody. And as I just said with Eamon, please, we will have an after show where after we go dark, we'll open this up to any questions, bird dog products, NDI, live streaming, production in general. So we will be doing the show again next week. And we're going to actually do something new for us. We're going to be looking at Wirecast 13. So we are not Wirecast experts, but we've been picking this up now and trying to get more familiar with what Wirecast offers. So on our next show, we're going to talk about some of the things we see. And this is going to be coming as somebody who's learning it. So hopefully, if you're at all interested in the capabilities of Wirecast, definitely something that we'd love to have you join us. But so until then, we'll go dark and have the after show. But if I don't see you then, have a great one. See you next week. All right. So, uh, so okay. Jeremy just said he said that he can help with questions next week. Jeremy, that would be great because as we go into any new piece of software, we're always looking for the the assistance of experts. So that's something definitely great. So
Yeah, Jeremy's a great guy. We spent some time with him at NAB New York. He's a fantastic guy and really knows what he's talking about. So yeah, and there's all kinds of ways to switch NDI and produce NDI, and Ycast is a great solution.
yeah, I mean we've actually spent a little time with it, and it's actually amazing how pervasive NDI has become. I every
Right.
product, and even ones that, like you said, things that are not targeted at traditional broadcast are all embracing NDI fully. So that's pretty impressive.
Well, it's built into Skype now, so
Yep.
NDI is built into Skype. So pretty much every computer in the world that has Skype on it now is NDI compatible.
So I mean, some of the stuff we didn't talk about, just waiting if
Mm.
anybody has any other comments or questions. But NDI itself has so many different levels to it. So I mean, it has data, it has audio, it has tally, as well as the video. So when you think about it, all the things that you're looking at in a sort of a rich data world. I mean, so for instance, one of the things that we do with our product is if somebody calls in, uh, we actually can feed the name they type over NDI as a data source and pull that up. So
That's it.
these types of things, so it just makes it easier. Stephen, hi, Stephen Hayward, and so Jeremy. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be definitely looking at where NDI is going, and I expect that we will be seeing you guys sort of following that trail as well because it's just exciting. I see so many different opportunities to do things with it.
Oh, absolutely. If you walk around, say, one of the big trade shows like IBC or NAB, well, not literally, but almost every stand has got some kind of NDI story now. So all of the big players in the industry are sort of talking about NDI in some respect,
Yep.
um, especially the software development people, because the way NewTek released the software NDK, the software SDK for
Yep.
free for all of the software developers, it was really easy for companies that produce graphic systems and things like this to just drop in the SDK and then automatically support NDI. So you've got people like Avid, Adobe support NDI playout straight off their timelines. We have a lot of customers around the place that are using that to then push out to our decoders for client screening rooms and things like this. But yeah, like all of the graphic systems companies support NDI, so you can just push into a TriCaster over NDI.
Yeah.
Really simply, yeah.
So Jeremy was asking about specific network architectures for setting up an NDI based studio. So
Yeah, that's a very big and open-ended
yeah,
question. I saw that one pop up. It really depends on what you're doing, how many
yeah,
users you have, and so on and so on. In terms of brands for switches and things like that, we try not to get down into that level because we feel like there's so many options and things like that. We can help people
yeah,
work through what they need for themselves. But there's some kind of overviews on NewTek's website about best practices for network switches and things like that. The recommendation is to use a business class switch. You don't necessarily need to use an enterprise switch, but maybe don't use a home
yep.
switch like $100 switch from your local office store. Maybe go for somewhere in between. You can use Cat 5, but probably Cat 6 is better. And if you can, Cat 6 shielded, even though there's probably not much difference between them. It's just, it's a little bit extra peace of mind. But really, the networking side of things, it's such an open ended question. It really depends on each customer's setup, really, and
Yeah.
what
I
they're
mean,
trying to achieve.
I think from our side, when we look at this, it's something where we think about using managed switches just because it gives you that visibility and control. And if you're
Sure.
dealing with IP as sort of the backbone, the more visibility you have into what's going on, that's going to help you. The other thing is, even though things can easily coexist, you may want to have sort of network segments and virtual networks set up, which having a managed switch will give you some options to do that. The higher quality, the better. Uh, we do know that you can mix both Dante and NDI on the same network. It's not always recommended, based on sort of the overall infrastructure. But one of the things I will say is that your studio network should be a studio network. It shouldn't have all the other office and data traffic and downloads. It should be isolated. So if I had to make one recommendation in this architecturally, I don't care what you're doing from, a small church or classroom to a large broadcaster, don't mix the two because you're just asking for trouble down the road.
Yeah, I'll second that. Whilst you can put it on the same network as your office data and your networking traffic, yes, definitely keep it separate if you can. Treat it as a video network, not a not a not a not an office data network.
It's
Um,
funny. It's what we
yeah,
used to.
if
Go ahead.
if I could, John, just
Yeah.
before you jump into the next thing, one thing that BirdDog will do is if you have a specific workflow and you want to know if it will work for you, we have networking engineers that work for us, and we're more than happy to have a look at your design and offer some suggestions based on sort of the topology
Yep.
of the networking side of things. You can just shoot that through to us on email to hello@birddog or help@bird-dog.tv, and we're more than happy to sort of help guide you through the topology of the network setup without getting down to the nitty gritty of which switch and which model to buy and
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There's a lot that goes into this, so it is a difficult question to answer in sort of a pithy
Yeah, but
way.
to make people
Yeah,
feel more comfortable, there are people in the world that have got more than 100 bird dogs in a network. We know of one customer in Sweden who do a lot of work with horse racing, and they're kind of famous in the new tech world. And they've got over 700 NDI sources on their network. So it can scale from two or three sources in a live streaming environment right through to hundreds and hundreds of sources. It just depends how the network is set up, and we have people that can help guide you through
yeah,
how to get the best out of your network. So
yeah. I think the other thing to keep in mind, because I've talked about this previously, is that the gigabit switches that everybody talks about, that's gigabit bidirectionally per port. So the switch itself isn't limited to a gigabit. So if you have lots of devices talking in sort of a matrix of things, you can put a lot more devices than just, like the 8 or whatever that new tech recommends. That's 8 from one box or 8 to one box, but it's not like 8 on your network. So that you have a lot of latitude.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's why you see Yeah, it's a really good point, John. That's why I see gigabit switches with a 10 gigabit backbone
Yep.
to, because there is a lot more data than just 1 gigabit on that switch.
So Lee was asking about revenue opportunities that could be on the horizon for businesses with NDI and streaming. So,
Yeah, streaming is the big one. You know, there's been so much talk about people cutting the cable at home, right? We don't need the cable anymore. We've got Netflix and we've got a different way to access sports over the internet and things like that. The amount of consumption of video these days is moving away from traditional broadcasters to YouTube. That's where the eyeballs are, and so people who are getting into live streaming, there's definitely revenue opportunities in live streaming, and especially if you're just starting out, things like school sports, house of worship, town hall meetings, and corporate events. So these days, if you're the CEO of a company and you're based out of Melbourne, but you have people all over the world, you want to get the message to them, you can just set up a small studio. You can use like a streaming box, like a little TriCaster or a vMix or
yep.
or a Wirecast from Telestream, and you can push that message out to the world with a very simple studio setup using NDI um, and if you choose NDI as the way you go, you can choose BirdDog products as well to help with that workflow. So in terms of revenue opportunities, definitely in the smaller scale live streaming, and it's the barrier to entry now is not what it used to be. You can buy, you know, $2,000 cameras from BirdDog. You can buy a Wirecast machine which is very well priced, or a vMix or something like this, and then yeah, you can get your message out to the world.
So, one of the things, sort of speaking from my view on this, is it's important that we stop packaging streaming as technology and we start packaging it as the solution somebody needs to get something done. Uh,
Yeah,
there's an old marketing saying that goes back where they said people don't buy quarter-inch drill bits; they buy quarter-inch holes, and that's the truth that we sort of have to hang on to here. If you just sell streaming as, gee, I got all this gear and I can do this, I think you miss the real opportunity here. So a big piece of it from my side is package it around what the client is trying to achieve. So think of
yeah, and the
streaming
end
the way they
result.
think about it.
Yeah,
So like for instance, colleges, if you turn around and say they want to reach out to alumni, create a package that says, okay, we're going to have an alumni focused streams. We'll do 4 a year. We're going to do sports. We're going to do, social work. We're going to do academics, and we're going to do, research and innovation. Bundle it, package it so that when you're selling it, the streaming is an element of it, but the value is what you want to sell, and they're not seeing the value in the stream. The stream is a way to reach their value goal. So just a sort of a perspective view on that.
yeah, no, I agree with you, John. We're sort of, we make the gear, so we're probably a little bit removed from how to go to market, and you're more of an expert on that than us. So that's a really good take on it, I think. Yeah,
But I mean, I think the key thing though, when we talk about NDI, is the flexibility. Having, whether you set up a studio or you're doing things remote, the ability to just say, I can reconfigure my network and reroute any of the signals that are on there. That's the win. That's going to let you bid on more types of business and deploy successfully with less time. And I mean, that's another thing. You have very little time to set up in a lot of these things if you're not a studio. So having things where you say everybody comes back, one switch, we're there, and then I can route and figure this out very quickly after it, with auto discovery.
that's one of the things we've had a lot of feedback on with NDI and with our products is being able to just run one cable from your vision mixer out to the cameras. It saves so much time in terms of having to run a SDI cable and then another audio cable and potentially a control cable.
Yep.
So the amount of cable, and cables are heavy. The amount of cabling you have to carry is far less, and
And
the time
comms.
to set up is just
Comms is in there too. The whole thing.
and
So,
long as well. Yeah. So
so
yeah. Yeah, so it's much faster to set up an NDI network, and we've seen this. Like I tried to do a little video or like a little post about it on our social media, but then at NAB in April in 2019, so sorry, earlier
Yep.
this year, I'm already thinking it's next year. Um,
I know that.
we were like packing down our stand every night in about 15 minutes, and then when we get to the stand in the morning, I would go and buy coffee for for my head engineer and our support guy. And by the time I got back, the whole stand was set up. And it's kind of hard to describe this in like a way that makes sense to people, but we were setting up a whole stand that had video going all over the place into screens, into cameras, and all this sort of thing, and they were setting it up in 15 minutes. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Whereas, in the past, to set up a trade show stand, it takes, an hour every morning.
I mean, live is risky enough. Now, like, anytime you're live, you always have a fair slug of risk in there. So having more time, it's never going to go to waste. My perspective. There's always going to be something that needs attention. So just you know, holding cable shouldn't be part of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree.
So all right. So if we don't have any questions, I'm just looking here. So all right. I think we've covered everybody's questions. Eamon, thank you very much for hanging around after the show and for joining us for the show. Definitely
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you,
that.
John. Will this be available on demand after the show that we can share out to our social?
Absolutely. I'll let you know when it's all up, and that anything you want to share would be great. And
Yeah, great.
I definitely want to get the
Let me
chance
just
to review some of the stuff you're doing coming up too. So
Okay, yeah, sure. Let me just close off by saying thank you, New Tech, for making NDI. Thank you, Dr. Andrew Cross.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, thank you too, John, for having us on the show. As I said, I've been following your progress for a little while. I really like the way you go about it. So anytime you want us to have us come back on, just let me know. We'll make it happen. So thank you again
Absolutely.
for having us this morning.
I will definitely take you up on that. So Josh,
Sure,
thank you for joining
anytime.
us. So okay,
Thanks,
cheers
Josh.
everyone. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.